Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to show you how to turn an unused or unwanted part of your lawn into a beautiful pot garden. The first step is to create the rough shape of your pot garden so you know how big it's going to be and so that you can visualise how it will sit in your lawn. Push some stakes into the ground and loop around some twine to create the outline of the desired shape. I used a stick to make sure the pot garden sits in the centre of the lawn, and so it's wide enough for our lawnmower. If you have a very large lawn, you should probably use a tape measure instead. Take a good look at your template from all angles, and if possible, look from a top floor window to make sure it's all neat. Then make any changes or tweaks to the shape. It's much harder to do once you've already dug the soil out. Okay, once you're happy with the shape, it's time to start digging. I've had to dig up a lot of turf on gardening projects, and the easiest way I've found is to dig horizontally rather than straight down. Grass roots aren't that deep and a sharp spade won't have any trouble. Start by digging a small trench at the edge to get going, and then while holding the spade horizontally, jab it underneath the turf to cut through the roots. You can then press down on the spade handle to pull the turf away from the soil. The turf should come away in spade-sized chunks, which makes it really easy to bag up. I save mine to let it break down, which I'll then use to top up my vegetable beds. In my garden I had these large raised beds, and I want the pot garden to mimic the waving shapes, so I mirrored the curves as best as I could. Flatten out the soil as best as you can. It doesn't need to be perfect, but do remove any large clumps. That's the basic shape done. Take another look from above to see if there are any tweaks needed. I wasn't happy with the flat ends on mine, so I curved them with a semicircle. Roll out your weed suppressant membrane and cut it to the required length, plus a little extra. Put something heavy on one end if it's a windy day. Then go round with a pair of scissors and cut to fit the shape in the lawn. Next, we need to cover this with whatever decorative substrate you have chosen. I've gone for small white stones to match the white of our raised beds. Starting at the edge again, and one handful at a time, apply the substrate to the membrane. Depending on how accurate your cutting was, you may need to fold over the edge of the membrane as you go. I recommend folding underneath to stop it poking out through the stones. Don't worry if you made a mistake with the membrane cutting like I did here. Simply cut a length to fit the gap with a little overlap and continue to go around the edge. Pull the membrane so it's flat when you work your way around to the other side. Bumps in the membrane may be visible through the stones later, and we want this looking neat. When the edges are done, apply the rest of the stones so that it's a consistent depth and you can't see any of the membrane through it. Flatten it out as you go to remove any ridges or bumps. Lastly, and this is important, do a weird ritual penguin walk over the stones. What we're doing here is pressing the stones down to check that we have the membrane properly covered. The last thing to do is the most fun. Decorate the pot garden. I would recommend having the largest or tallest pots in the middle, but just have a play around and see what looks good for you. I'm going to use this pot garden for a few things. Definitely flowers, but also herbs, fruits and vegetables. And also storing some of my nursery plants. There's nowhere else in the garden suitable to look after the young plants, and having them all together here makes it really easy to water. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you do this in your own garden, I'd love to see it. I hope I've inspired you in some way, and here are a few other videos that you may be interested in. Happy growing!